The deserts of the Sahara may look endless, but for centuries, they weren't barriers, they were bridges. And on the southern edge of this ocean of sand, civilizations rose that would change not only Africa, but the imagination of the entire world. This is West Africa, a land of gold, salt, scholars, and kings whose names still echo across history. Our journey begins with the Ghana Empire, not the Ghana we know today, but an ancient kingdom that flourished over 1,000 years ago in what is now Mali and Mauritania. Imagine caravans stretching for miles, camels loaded with gold, salt, and ivory, crossing the Sahara. Ghana was the middleman of Africa, controlling trade routes that linked West Africa to North Africa and beyond. Its kings grew so wealthy that Arab historians wrote of palaces decorated with gold and courts glittering with riches. Salt may sound ordinary to us today, but back then, it was worth its weight in gold. It preserved food, sustained life, and fueled economies. Ghana's power came from controlling this golden salt exchange. But empires rise, and empires fall. Ghana eventually gave way to something even greater. Enter Mali, one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. At its height in the 14th century, Mali stretched across vast lands, controlling rivers, trade routes, and some of the richest gold mines in history. And then came Mansa Musa. If you've ever heard of the richest man in history, that's him. Musa's wealth was so legendary that when he went on pilgrimage to Mecca, he carried so much gold that he caused inflation in Cairo for years. Imagine walking into a city and spending so much money that the economy literally bends around you. That was Mansa Musa. But Musa wasn't just about wealth. He loved knowledge. He turned Timbuktu into a global center of learning, where scholars, poets, and thinkers gathered. The libraries of Timbuktu once held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts, proof that Africa wasn't just trading goods, it was trading ideas. After Mali's glow began to fade, the Songhai Empire rose in its place. Songhai was vast, one of the largest empires in African history. Its kings, like Sunni Ali and Askia the Great, built powerful armies and expanded trade even further. Songhai's strength was in its organization. It had governors, tax systems, and courts. Trade routes hummed with goods, gold, kola nuts, slaves, and textiles. Timbuktu remained the jewel, a city where knowledge was as valuable as wealth. But in the late 16th century, Songhai fell to invaders from Morocco, armed with guns. It marked the end of an era, but the legacy of these empires still lives on in West Africa's culture, languages, and pride. Now let's move to what is today Nigeria. The Yoruba kingdoms, especially Ife and Oyo, were cultural powerhouses. Ife is remembered as the spiritual heart, producing breathtaking bronze and terracotta sculptures so lifelike that early Europeans refused to believe Africans had made them. The Oyo Empire, on the other hand, was political and military muscle. With its famous cavalry, Oyo expanded across West Africa, creating a network of trade and influence. Yoruba traditions of kingship, festivals, and art continue to shape Nigerian identity today. Next door, the Benin Empire rose as another center of art and power. The Benin bronzes, exquisite plaques and sculptures, captured scenes of daily life, warriors, and kings in extraordinary detail. They weren't just art, they were history books cast in metal. Benin was also a fortress. Its walls and moats were so vast that they have been called one of the greatest earthworks in the world. Long before modern engineering, Benin showed what African ingenuity could build. Across in Ghana, the Ashanti Empire emerged in the 17th century. The Ashanti people's power rested on unity and symbolism, embodied in the golden stool. It wasn't just a throne, it was said to hold the soul of the entire nation. The Ashanti became feared and respected for their military strength, their wealth from gold, and their fierce defense of independence. They resisted European colonizers with such determination that even the British had to admit their bravery. But not every West African power was a centralized empire. The Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria lived in decentralized societies, where decisions were made by councils of elders and assemblies rather than kings. It was a different form of governance, democratic in its own way, that showed Africa's political diversity. West Africa wasn't just about gold and empires. It was about culture. Music, drumming, storytelling, and oral traditions flourished. Griots, storytellers and historians, carried the memory of generations, ensuring that even without writing, history lived on in song and speech. And trade wasn't just about goods, it was about people. Sadly, West Africa also became the epicenter of the Atlantic slave trade, a dark chapter that would scar the continent and shape the modern world. But even in the face of this tragedy, West African cultures endured, carried across oceans and still alive today in the rhythms of samba, blues, reggae, and hip-hop. So, when we look at West Africa, we see more than deserts and villages. We see empires that rivaled Rome in wealth, kings whose names still sparkle with legend, and cultures that refuse to be silenced. But while West Africa shone with gold and wisdom, far to the south another stage of African history was unfolding. A land of warriors and kingdoms, of cattle and stone cities. A place where Zulu kings would shake empires, and ancient builders would carve civilizations into the very earth. That is the story of Southern Africa.